Hey everyone, Amia here from Resonance Astrology and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week ahead, and we're going to look at the astrology of the week of April 21st till April 27th, 2025. And first of all, hi and welcome all the new people to my channel. This Mars retrograde video that I've put up recently kind of gained a lot more traction than I anticipated, but I'm here for it. I hope you're here for it. And if you find your way to the channel, welcome here. This is the realm of resonance astrology, and I just thought since there are a lot of new people here, I might as well just do a bit of a brief introduction, since probably a lot of you don't know so many things about me. And so, first of all, hi, my name is Amia, and I go under the name of Resonance Astrology, and I've been an astrology enthusiast for a long time. I feel like I've been studying or just learning about astrology on and off for over 10 years now, probably even longer. The story of how I got more into astrology is quite a weird and bizarre one, to be completely honest, because when I was here, so also a fun thing about me, I am from Switzerland. I was born and raised in Switzerland, although my roots are from the Balkans, so I am also, my blood is from Croatia, Serbia, these regions. But yeah, I've grew up in Switzerland. I still live in Switzerland. I can also speak German, Swiss German. I can also speak Croatian, Serbian. I grew up trilingual, so to say. There's many languages that flow through my head, so that's also sometimes what you can see when I articulate myself. Some things it's hard for me to say because usually I just use the first words that pop into my head, or some words I can't pronounce quite correctly. So I hope you have some grace with me if that happens, just because my brain functions in 3 different languages. So there's a lots of things always going on. But to get back to the astrology story, so here in Switzerland, basically, I guess I would say something of an equivalent of high school or something like that. But I went here to this extra school year before we start our apprenticeships, because here we start, or most people start at least, their apprenticeships quite early. There's also an option to go study further and go to the gymnasium. But again, I'm not here to explain the Swiss school system because that would take way too long. But essentially, I did this extra school year because I didn't immediately want to start my apprenticeship. And so I went to a different school for this extra school year, and basically we could all sign up for additional classes. And so I signed up for the psychology classes. But because there were so many people that signed up for these classes, the school director actually decided to split this group into 2 and do one mainly purely psychology class and one astrological psychology class. And that is so weird and bizarre, because thinking back now, I'm I basically learned astrology in the school system. What are the odds? That does not even really happen. So and from my school director. So I was there grouped. I truly believe it was kind of my destiny, so to say, to actually be put in this class. So that's how I first really started to get into astrology, or where I guess for the first time I realized, oh, there's much more to astrology. Personally, I always very much related to my sun sign, which is Scorpio, and that is probably because I am also Scorpio rising. So I had a lot of the Scorpio traits just very much related to me, so I never questioned it in that regard. But I know for a lot of people that have a different sun sign than their rising sign or other prominent planets in their chart, they can really not relate at all. And so understanding that astrology is much broader, there's so much more to it, is very much a big revelation usually when you come across it for the first time. And for me, that was really at that time. And I think I was around maybe 15, 16 years old at that time. And so funnily enough, I actually didn't fully understand it so well at that time, which is hilarious thinking back now. But yeah, we had also tests, and I didn't do so well on the tests actually. And then I kind of put astrology on the side, or I didn't just care too much about it. But then when I started doing my apprenticeship, which was in the nursing field, I worked as a psychiatry nurse for 6 years, until I had my own inevitable burnout that happened. But basically during that time, and some of you guys that work in the medical field probably have realized that too, around the full moons, things always get much more amplified. Things are a lot more stressful, a lot more, how do you say this? Like emergencies happen. And so I was noticing these patterns and making these correlations, and that's kind of what led me to get back into astrology. It was really the moons, and also my first book, where I literally have it here on my bookshelf. This was like my first like more official astrology book, Moonology by Yasmin Boland, and I think it's a great beginner's book, honestly. I don't really use it so much anymore, but it really helped me out at that time. And also like, you know, correlating the signs, like incorporating the signs back again, because okay, every new and full moon are in different signs, and that's what really also made me connect much more deeply to the signs. So interestingly enough, it was really the moon that kind of got me back into astrology. And then around 2020, I actually had a complete falling out with astrology, which it was like at that time where I wasn't really doing well in my life. Lots of health struggles, mental health struggles, but also physical body struggles. And things were not fully lining up with the astrology, or at least how I got to know astrology, because the way that I got more into astrology was definitely more in the like modern psychological astrology realm. And I just realized that I don't really have any good explanations of why things are the way that they are. And this really irked me. And especially then when I also realized, oh, there's Vedic astrology. And wait, if I put my birth chart into like Vedic astrology, the sidereal zodiac is completely different. So is everything I learned until now a lie? And I just believed it because I saw the patterns. I have better explanations now, by the way, because everything is about the relationship with the planets, but that's like another topic for another time. But essentially what happened then is I found one of my first like more official astrology teachers, which was Adam Ellenboss, also known as Nightlight Astrology. And I learned so much from him at that time. And I also really got into the astrology podcast. And that's also when I decided to take my first like official astrology course, which actually thinking back now is not quite true, because I did also take Seja Popham's course about like evolutionary herbalism, but like correlating herbalism with the planets and the zodiacs a year prior to that. But at that time, I really got into like Hellenistic astrology, ancient Hellenistic astrology. And for me, that was a very, very important turning point. It was actually during my Jupiter return in Aquarius. Interestingly enough, I found like new teachers and went back to the ancients, to the basics, to the history. I really wanted to know why things are the way that they are. And so I studied so much. I connected back to the initial praxis of like how the ancients formed astrology, and that for me really helped me. I really needed to solidify that base. Jupiter is also in my 4th house, so you know, like the base, I needed that base, like that fundamental base of really knowing why things are the way that they are. And then I found that so many things in astrology have very logical explanations once you go back to how things got formed. And for me, that was really important, because before that, I couldn't really explain why things are the way that they are. Now I can. And so nowadays, I like to call myself ancient Hellenistic astrology primarily. I do also incorporate some aspects of modern psychological astrology, just because I did work as a psychiatry nurse for a long time. So there's like no way that I can ignore the psychology aspect of things. It's just, I've seen so much things. I've been through so many things myself. And I love the human mind. I love exploring the psychology. So I have to incorporate it. There's no way. I love archetypal psychology, Carl Jung type of things. I also like archetypal astrology. So I definitely incorporate both of these together as well. And I also like to call myself a relational astrologer, because like one of the main things of my praxis is kind of really to, like, the core is really having a relationship to the planets. And that might not be like important to you if you maybe come to me for a reading or something like that. It's important to me how I practice astrology, because my astrology got so much better once I started to build a relationship to the planets. And so one thing I always like to ask, like an open question, I guess, or that I have also definitely asked myself, is instead of asking, what are the planets doing to me? What if I ask, what can I do for the planets? Because so often we land in these like circumstances where we feel like the victim of them. And it's so easy to just feel like cursed or doomed or whatever. I've definitely been there, trust me, where you feel like the cosmos or the stars are working against you, or what's the point of going through these transits? But if you start building a relationship and you start getting curious, like maybe Saturn is having a really hard aspect in your chart right now, well, instead of feeling like Saturn is ruining your life, how about you sit down maybe on Saturday, which is Saturn day, even more advanced during Saturn hour, you start just building a relationship with Saturn. Start asking Saturn, what are you trying to do in my life? What are you trying to provide? What is the lesson you're trying to teach me? Because I can guarantee you that will completely shift the way that you are interacting with the cosmos and living your day-to-day life. Because at the end of the day, astrology is practical. Okay, it's not this out there woo-woo thing in the sky. No, the transits and the planets exemplify our daily life, our stories that we are going through. The archetypes show itself and weave themselves through our daily lives. And for me, that's the most beautiful part of astrology, is the stories, is the things that happen to us, the things we can then engage with. So that's why I also like to call myself a relational astrologer. And so these are, I think, important things that, like, I can tell you a bit about myself and some other reflections that I think I have to share, just because I often do this with these weekly overview videos. Now, I guess the intro is just a bit longer, but hopefully much needed. Hopefully you got, to know me a bit better here and what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to teach, how I am as a person, because, hopefully you resonate with me. That's why it's resonance astrology. And in the beginning, before I dive fully into the astrology of the week ahead, I kind of like to put up some reflections and just talk about what was happening last week, maybe in my personal life collectively. So we will do that now. And I kind of want to talk a bit about Mars moving into Leo, which again is so interesting. As a Scorpio rising, Mars is my ascendant ruler. And so I find it very fascinating that the video I did on Mars in Leo, Mars moving into my 10th house of like career visibility, is the one that gains so much traction. That's like, what a literal manifestation of that. I was not prepared, but again, I'm here for it. So I'm totally wondering how this Mars moving into Leo transit has been feeling for you right now. I definitely feel like we're also starting to feel the tension, because again, this is also the first thing that kind of happens on Monday, has already also happened since I've uploading the video, which is Sun squaring the Mars. Sorry, I said that very weirdly. Sun and Taurus squaring Mars and Leo, which is definitely a point that can bring a bit of tensions and clashes. And this whole tension that is beginning on Monday is all kind of leading up to something even greater, which is happening during this weekend, which is the new moon in Taurus. But the thing is, the new moon in Taurus is also coinciding with Mars opposing Pluto, so this is kind of forming a T-square. And this can often feel like this volcanic eruption, which is building up from the back, rising, it's not yet happening yet. And usually the tension always feels the most like unstable and shaky when we don't yet know. Like when the explosion happens, it's just the eruption. But the tension is really felt when it's like brooding underneath. You're feeling like something might happen. So I think this is really how this week is kind of kicking off. And I'm wondering how you guys are feeling with all of this. If you're feeling the tension and this like bubbling up force that is about to kind of burst and explore. Also definitely inviting us to undergo some transformative experience. I feel like this week is very much a death and rebirth week, I mean, we have Pluto here, so obviously it kind of is. And yes, I'm just wondering how you guys have been doing with this. I've also personally been undergoing a Venus temple journey for the past like 2 months already, and we have been going through archetypes. The first one was the priestess, then it was the Dakini or the warrior, then it was the muse, and now last Friday we've kind of initiated the queen, which in my opinion is also very Mars in Leo like, because the queen kind of asks us, how do I deal with visibility? Because the queen is really this force that is like on the throne, has this might, has this power, has this responsibility, kind of has to get comfortable with being seen and not be so emotional about the decisions that she makes, because like not shying away from taking the responsibility of like for oneself, but also for the people around them, for the folks, or like the nation, I guess, so to say. But you can apply that in like a more literal way to your life, right? So interesting reflection I have here as well. Also, just a reminder in general, the planets are all direct right now. They have already also all been direct last week. And so that is still like, we are still in a very much forward moving momentum right now. But things are still picking up. We are slowly getting out of the post shadow periods of Mercury, then of Venus, and then of Mars. So things are definitely picking up back speed again. And there's lots of room for forward momentum, new realizations, basically integrating everything that these retrograde periods have been for us, like the story arc chapters that they have exemplified in our lives. We're also officially in Taurus season now, a season known for moving much more slowly, or at least Taurus as an archetype is known for that. And I'm right here, first of all, to completely unshame that, because I think so many of us struggle with slowness, and I just love Taurus coming in and reminding us to take it down a notch. This quote that I just always like to say with Taurus is, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And for me, that is just such a Taurus season mantra, realizing that things will get accomplished regardless. So why do I have to hurry? Like, the trees will blossom in time. So there's no need to rush. And personally, I have a hard time with Taurus energy. I mean, it's my opposing sign, right? But I think there's so much for me to learn from Tauruses. I love the simplicity. I think so much of the Taurus simplicity comes from realizing that, like, why make things hard when you can just make things simple? And really taking things back to nature, where it's like reminding ourselves that we are kind of like plants, and that by getting enough sunlight, drinking enough water, making sure we are in the right environment conducive to our health that we can then bloom and sprout, are maybe like the most important things we can do. It's like we don't need to overcomplicate things, which sometimes Scorpio struggles with. So this is really the wisdom we are currently learning, and just like a reminder that I want to like put out in the cosmos. So pick it up if it resonates. And with this, I think we can officially go into talking about the astrology of the week ahead. Super long intro. Thank you for staying around here. Now we are talking about the astrology of the week ahead. So on Monday, we have Sun in Taurus squaring Mars and Leo. Briefly already talked about this before, because this is definitely this like tension point that starts off this week and is moving towards the T-Square new moon with the new moon in Taurus we have by the end of this week. Over the weekend, that is also coinciding with Pluto opposing Mars, or maybe Mars opposing Pluto is the better way to say it. So there's this like volcanic broodic eruption that is like starting right now at the beginning of this week. And honestly, like, Taurus and Leo are both fixed signs. And we're heading up to this T-square that is also bringing in another fixed sign, which is Aquarius. Fixed signs don't really like to get disrupted. So this is why this can feel even more like annoying, I guess, the tension that it brings, because oftentimes the chart areas, like the houses that the fixed sign rules in your chart, are the houses or the topics that they rule, which you have the most hard time like transforming and letting go of, or you can be very fixed and rigid in them. So look at your chart. Where do you have those fixed houses? Especially which houses do Aquarius. I mean, you can take all of them into consideration. Like, even though nothing is happening into Scorpio, the T-square especially is like reflecting back to Scorpio. So all the fixed houses, Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Look at them. What are the topics? Because most likely these topics are gonna get a lot of like built up pressure around them, which kind of have this volcanic eruptive moment by the end of this week. So also the Sun square Mars in Leo, I think, brings in tension between like grounded, steady energy, which is like more Taurus, and bold, expressive drive, which is, you know, Mars in Leo. So there's definitely a clash of will versus ego that is possible here. What we also have on Monday is Saturn is conjoining the North Node in Pisces. There is actually a post by a fellow astrologer, Kira Ryberg, that I love here. And so I will actually read out bits and pieces of the post that she made, just because I find it so fitting. And I couldn't have come up with anything better, honestly. So she wrote that one of the challenges with Saturn and the North Node being conjunct is that it can create a feeling that more discipline is always the answer. The only answer is, in fact, the only answer, in fact, to being successful, happy, etc. So, like, this feeling that more discipline is just always somehow the answer. Then she also writes, while Saturn hangs out with the North Node, resists the urge to optimize every part of your day in the hopes that it will finally make everything fall into place. The key is discernment. Sometimes the discipline and perseverance that Saturn brings to the table is welcome, even helpful. But when the North Node ramps Saturn's tendencies up to an all-time high, it almost always becomes something unsupportive disguised as potential cure. Because the North Node is about increase. Okay, I followed like the more ancient Hellenistic perspective with the nodes of the moon, which like the North Node is about increase and the South Node is about decrease, like in very simple terms. And so oftentimes when malefics or even benefics, right, it can be both, but Saturn is a malefic planet, so it conjoining the North Node, even being close to the North Node, kind of increases its maleficness. And Saturn can, again, like increase this urge of like, oh, I need to be disciplined, I need to be rigid. And this is exactly what we are trying to avoid. And this is kind of how Monday kicks off. And again, the key is discernment here. I think it just has a lot to do with like productivity, where a lot of people might be feeling like, oh my gosh, if I just do this and this and this, and I go out jogging and I squeeze in a few more hours, I will be so much more productive. And it's like, no, especially now during Taurus season, the reminder, like, no, maybe rest is the most wiseful action you can take. Maybe slowing down is the most wise thing you can do, because that will actually restore your health to something a lot better, because then you will actually genuinely be able to be so much more productive in a way that doesn't harm your health. So this is what we want to get into. And again, shout out to Kira Ryberg. Her name is Kira Astrology on Instagram. I'm going to link it down below. Amazing astrologer. Definitely go follow her. What we also have on Monday is the last quarter moon in Aquarius. Last quarter moons are kind of like a part of like reflection and like release. You know, after that we are heading towards the balsamic moon phase, which is like pre-new moon. And so this is definitely a time of, with Aquarius, you know, it's like a heady sign, so it's like letting go of outdated ideas of like how you're associating yourself with maybe like group affiliations, or how you are being in service to the world, so to say, and that like no longer serve your growth. And it's a mental clearing before the upcoming new moon. So this is what we have for Monday. On Tuesday, we don't have any significant transits. So it's a day to integrate, Monday's intensity and kind of ground your energy, because it definitely feels like the quiet before the storm. Then on Wednesday, we have Sun in Taurus, square Pluto in Aquarius. This is something that we already experienced in April 2023. Because Pluto is so slow moving, so it kind of like gradually moves 1 year more every year. And the first time we had Sun in Taurus, square Pluto in Aquarius was on April 20th, 2023. We also had it last year, April 21st, 2024. So again, it's like 1 day later every year, essentially. During this whole stay that Pluto will be in Aquarius, we will always get 1 yearly Sun in Taurus, square Pluto in Aquarius. But I'm just reiterating this because that means it is something we have already experienced 2 times. It's not something completely new. That's why it's probably not like the parts of our charts that Aquarius and Taurus rule already know this energy. That's what I'm trying to get at here. It's definitely a powerful transformative aspect. And again, like this recurring theme. So maybe look back, what was going on around mid-April 2023, mid-April 2024 for you in the Taurus, Aquarius areas of your chart, because that will give you much more insight about what this square means for you, because we are experiencing this every year now. It's a time for deep internal shifts or power struggles that may surface. There's always like this push for like authentic expression and the release of control when these two kind of come together. We also have the moon moving into Pisces on Wednesday, but the moon in Pisces becomes much more significant on Thursday and even Friday. So let's talk about that. On Thursday, we have Venus conjunct the North Node in Pisces. This is also not like a completely new aspect, because all the time since Venus has been back into Pisces, she never really was super far away from the North Node. So now she's just coming together in a degree, like a conjunction is when they're both at the exact same degrees. But we also have something that we call an engagement range, which means that things are already starting to pick up engagement and things are happening when a planet is give and take 3 degrees apart of another planet. The North Node isn't really a planet, but we can kind of apply this here as well. With the moon, it's a bit wider, by the way, because the moon just moves so fast. But again, the main thing that is happening on Thursday is Venus is conjuncting the North Node in Pisces. This is something that it has a lot to do with like the Venus retrograde cycle, essentially. And especially because, again, the North Node amplifies things. It's about increase. It's asking us, where have we been wearing these love, it's not love, it's rose-colored glasses, not love-colored glasses, but just rose-colored glasses when it comes to love and romance. This is definitely something that can happen. Ideally, Venus conjunct North Node in Pisces is like an ideal time for creative expression, but it can also be like overly idealistic, to the point of like idealizing people, relationships, or like the idea of love and relationships to a point that can get unhealthy, where we feel more in love with the fantasy of someone or something than the actual person or thing. So it's a great day to just like ask yourself, am I in love with the fantasy and the idea of someone or something? It can also be a pursuit, it can be a creative pursuit as well. Or is there genuine like potential here? But it's definitely a great day for like creative inspiration and deepening soulful bonds. But again, just be careful, because it's very easy to fall for the idea, or just generally like think about your ideas of love and romance and how they've shaped you, and where you sometimes can be a bit unrealistic or too up in the clouds. So this is what I have for Thursday. On Friday, Venus Day, we have then Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces. And Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces is, about committing your values and relationships, about like artistic processes that take time and effort to create something. It can also be like a love reality check, which I love that this is happening like right after Venus is conjoining the North Node in Pisces, because it will be easier to kind of check ourselves if we have been wearing these rose-colored glasses when it comes to maybe a person or something or an idea. There is a whole video I did, which I'm gonna probably put somewhere here, you can check it out afterwards, about why Venus and Saturn rule over April 2025. They are both important key players, and in this video I go much more in depth about key factors of Venus and Saturn. So if you want to check that out, if you want to hear me talk much more in depth about Venus conjunct Saturn, because again, they're just such key players this month of April, check out the video. You will gain much more insight. Then what we also have, and this is where I'm coming back to the moon in Pisces, because the moon in Pisces is now in its balsamic phase. So I think all these Venus Saturn topics have a much higher potential to reach like good resolutions, you know, where it's like soulful coming together, committing deeply, or feeling safe to commit, you know. There's definitely like the safety aspect that has to be established with Venus and Saturn. And so this moon in Pisces just kind of comes in like this, I don't know, it just feels like very generous and beautiful that the moon in Pisces is also hanging around there and just being like, okay, I feel like I feel safe to commit. It can be to a person, it can be to a project, it can be to your own idea of something. But I think this is really good for Friday. And then later on, more so in the evening, at least here in Central European time. Also, by the way, just something that I think is important to say, which I totally forgot to say in the beginning, but I'm just going to say it now. Everything I'm telling you right now is based on Central European time. So sometimes transits, depending on which time zone you're in, might be happening a bit earlier or a bit later on. But everything I'm saying to you is Central European time, because here in Central Europe, the moon is moving into Aries a bit later on in the day, like evening of Friday, but depending on where you, this might be happening sooner. But the moon moving into Aries is monumental because this time around, the moon is going to conjoin Neptune, which moved into Aries as well. This is happening for the first time since Neptune moved into Aries, that the moon is coming together. So, like, wow, you know, this is going to be new for all of us. And again, this is like, it's like an emotional preview, I guess, of this new era of spiritual independence, fairy dreams, and inspired action. Because we're going to get a lot of Neptune moon conjunctions in Aries after this, but this is like the first one, okay? So it's really starting to kick things off. So it's a day where emotional impulses may blend with idealism, and it's great for visionary goals, especially practical and tangible goals that we want to do and set. So yes, but just do be mindful of reacting impulsively to vague feelings, because Moon and Neptune together can create this sort of layer of just not seeing things clearly, especially when it comes to like our emotions and intuition. Like we can easily conflate intuition with some trauma responses, so to say, and we might think, oh, it's me intuitively reacting, when it's like, no, actually, this is just a trauma response to something and not actually your intuition speaking. Intuition is always this calm knowing, even if it's something that is more how do you say, like disruptive. But if it's a trauma response, it's hectic, you know, it's bringing up all these feelings of survival. If that's what you're feeling, probably not your intuition, okay? Just to like distinguish these two together. But again, I don't know, I'm just like excited and terrified for the moon and Neptune coming together in Aries for the first time, but I think it's gonna be great. Definitely great for new visionary goals. So yes. Then on Saturday, we have, we don't really have any significant aspects, but we have Mercury leaving its post-shadow period. Yes. This definitely means a lot more mental clarity will return, and things, associated with Mercury, like communication, travel, making decisions, are gonna flow much more smoothly moving forward, and you should gain much more like insight and clarity. I know for a lot of people, March has been such a confusing month, but now Mercury leaving post shadow period is definitely gonna bring up more clarity, and you might feel like, yes, now I can make the decision. Now I can finally do it. So yes, red light, not red lights. Sorry, I was just like red lights because Aries, red. But what I meant was to say green lights from Mercury in Aries on Saturday during this weekend. And then on Sunday, we have Mars in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius and the Taurus New Moon, which again will form a T-square. Mars in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius is intense power dynamics around ambition, around like personal drive that could really clash with like what you want for yourself or what is better for the collective. Like being like putting yourself first or putting the collective first. Definitely called to also use your willpower wisely because when Mars and Pluto come together, there is, I guess the question is always, are you going to go into creation or are you going to go into destruction? And the line can be very thin when these two come together, especially in opposition, because oppositions are ruled by Saturn. And the tension that Saturn asks us to hold, or oppositions ask us to hold, is can we actually hold both opposites as true? So in this case, it's like, maybe there isn't really the answer of like, oh, it's like I have to sort myself first or I have to put the collective first. Maybe it's like, can I maybe try and do both? Can I look at where in life do I need to be more egotistical, so to say, and put myself first? Because at the end of the day, if I'm being the most me that I can be, which is Leo, then I can actually serve the world in my best capacity. So I guess this is the combination we are trying to search for and like the ideal gist of this whole transit. Because then you can much more easily put this energy into something creative. Otherwise, it can easily be destructive. Mars can, like, if we are not learning to wield Mars in our charts, Mars can start to wield us. And with great power comes great responsibility. That's kind of a quote I always like to use here. We need to learn, especially with Mars and Leo, what it means to take responsibility for ourselves, for being in the spotlight, for shining authentically. What comes with that? What precautions come for us and what precautions come for being seen and being visible. So this is kind of what this opposition is asking us. With the New Moon Taurus and T-Square, there is like obstacles in... Okay, let me put it this way. Mars and Pluto together can just come like this force that is like, I have to do it now. It can be very primal and instinctual, okay? Very much crisis moments, very much putting these primal fears that often come up with us, which can be things like existential fear. There's nothing else that's coming to mind right now. But existential fears essentially are very Mars-Pluto-like. But then we have the T-square to Taurus, with Taurus that is like, I want to take my time to make this change. Please don't rush me. And so this is where this tension of this T-square come in, because it might feel like we are being forced to grow at a speed much faster than we would like. Never mind, I think the main thing I can say here is the only way out is through. Don't try to hold on, because if the stars are inviting you to go through a portal, you take that invitation, okay? If you're trying to hold on and escape your fate, you're just gonna make things so much more harder for you. So, like, invite in this transformation if it wants to happen. And, like, ground your intentions in stability. Even if things might feel very volatile in the moment, ground yourself in the long-term things that you want to do. Like, believe in the long-term of things. Believe that the transformation you're undergoing right now will serve in your long-term process and for your higher and greater good. So stay just open to flexibility and change right now during this weekend, because again, you will just be making things harder for yourself if you're not doing this. But again, I know this is a fixed sign T-square, and this can be very harsh in this regard, that fixed signs just don't do so well in change. So that's why it just might be much more stressful for us, or these areas in our chart that are being highlighted. Which also brings me to shout out my former video, which I guess a lot of you have watched. If you haven't though, if you want to know what this T-square means for you, I have this whole Mars in Leo video where I'm breaking it down sign by sign, where you can watch for your sun or rising sign. So if you want to know what it means for you, check out this video, because you will gain much more clarity of what it means for you and your chart. So this is what I have for you guys this week. A very intense and eventful week. Things after the T-square should definitely be simmering down, but we are kind of, you know, getting by the end of April with a bit of a like volcanic eruptive energy. So yes, what is there else to say? If you want to stay in touch with me, if you like this channel, please give it a like. If you found this video useful, subscribe to the channel. I do weekly updates. It's super fun sitting down every week, looking at the week ahead. So if you want to stay updated for that, subscribe to the channel. I also do more in-depth videos on specific transits. Again, also horoscopes. So if you like that, subscribe to the channel. And sorry, I had said subscribe like 4 times now. Other than that, you can also just like the video or share it with somebody that might find it useful. It helps out more than you know, seriously. And I'm also very active on other social medias like Instagram, so make sure to follow me on there. All the links to my socials are down below, so if you want to connect, you can find everything there. And yeah, so let me know how this week has been going for you guys. I'm super curious to hear. I love to read your stories, okay? Because for me, astrology happens with the stories. So if you're brave enough to step into the Leo limelight just a bit, maybe comment what you're going through. Other people can read it. For me, I learn so much when I read other people's stories. Seriously. So I highly encourage you to do that, just to kind of like nudge that Mars and Leo energy in your chart, especially if you're uncomfortable with being seen and visible. This time around, it's time to get comfortable with that. So yeah, I wish you all a lovely week ahead, and I'll see you soon. Bye.